All my life, I've always tried to perceive the relationship between the physical life and the spiritual life, and how the things that are invisible in the world find expression through the physical things that we do. And this is kind of what drew me ultimately to the theater.
That was the question I was about to ask. Would acting be a connection between the invisible and the visible lives?
Yeah, when I think about acting, I think about ultimately being the conduit or the sort of connective tissue or the sort of conductor between the emotional life of the ideas in the play and the emotional life of the environment, like the other people in the play and the people that are there to watch the play. And so writing a play is kind of like conducting or designing what that conversation could be, what the conversation could be between a set of characters and the way that whatever those characters are engaged in or trying to do sort of produces a spiritual ideal that we're all going to sit with for the next 90 minutes. That's what writing a play is somehow ultimately about. And so the actors in the play are a very key part of that.
How did you come to acting?
I came to acting as a child. I was a very athletic child, and so I was engaged in team sports very young. And so I think that when I began doing plays when I was 7, 8, 9, it was almost an extension of team sports. We're doing this physical thing in order to be together and somehow understand something about life and who we are in life. Somehow being in plays was a bit more directly that endeavor, and that seemed to appeal to me very much. And also, of course, there is a relationship between the sport and the audience that I think I enjoyed. But again, being in a play was somehow more directly a dialogue with an audience. And so immediately, theater became a more primary outlet for this thing that even when I was very little, I was interested in, which was kind of like, what are we all doing here? How have we all arrived wherever we are in life, and what are we going to learn about it through this thing we're all in this room together around, and whether it was a basketball game or a play or a musical. And so acting came to me very young and then immediately took over as a very primary way to be after this thing that I've always been very interested in.
How would you describe this dialogue between the actors and the audience?
I think the relationship between the actors and the audience is really mysterious.
You're talking about a dialogue.
Yeah, I do really think it is. It's a dialogue that's both invisible and perceivable. Of course, there's a direct dialogue between what the players are doing on stage and the way the audience responds. Laughter, breath, movement, shifting, emotion, catharsis. But there's also this sort of invisible back and forth that starts to happen anytime I think a group of people are all physically in the same space that seems to have something to do with very large spiritual questions. So this is a very old thing, that this can be a church service, this can be a graduation, this can be a play, this can be a funeral. But anytime that a large group of people are together, there seems to be something at work that's about, well, what is it about? It's like, why are we here? What does it mean to be here? What are we supposed to be doing with our time here? And somehow this invisible question starts to sort of gain current, a kind of electricity during a play. It's almost like a byproduct, something that comes off of the play itself, whether the play is like a really silly farce or a really political drama. There's still this question of what it means to be a human being and that we're all sort of sitting with through the course of a live event. That's why I think a play and the relationship, the dialogue between the audience and the actors can be so satisfying and so mysterious and healing and invigorating.
Do you think that the audience is aware of that dialogue?
I think there probably are moments that the audience becomes aware of it. Certainly if you're a theater maker, a theater craftsman, it's something that you're carrying as part of the job and the aim of what you're doing. And probably if you're a person that goes to the theater very regularly, you're aware that the medium has the potential to deliver this kind of terrain. But the truth is, most of the time we fail at this in the theater, and that's why we keep trying. And every time we go to a play, we know that it has the potential to speak to us on this level, and chances are it won't, or it only will for a split second.
Have you ever forgotten your lines on stage?
Oh, of course. It's really a profound terror to not know your lines on stage. There is a reason that this is the actor's nightmare.
What happened?
An utter and really astonishing blankness, a profound, absolute mindlessness, like probably what we're all aiming for in meditation. Something like that happens. If you weren't under the pressure to end this moment as quickly as possible and get back on track, it would probably be extremely wonderful to experience, actually, because there's an audience looking at you, and probably your cohort, your colleague on stage is also looking at you with a sense of like, are we fucked? It's that sort of forces you to panic and try to figure out how to get on track. So thank God it doesn't happen that much, but one is in danger of it happening at every moment. I never forget that when I'm performing. I would say the most terrifying times have been when I was in my own play, The Amish Project, because it's a one-woman show. So that's a very interesting task, because that play is constructed in such a there's very little fat on that play, and so you can't exactly just riff. At the same time, when you're in a one-person show, your scene partner is the audience, and so the thing that I found so overwhelming and then ultimately very addictive about solo performance is that you are receiving so much information. You can literally hear the audience thinking and feeling while you're performing, but you're talking the entire time. And so it is really terrifying. And the way I used to cope with that was absolute speed. I would perform the show like a tiger was chasing me. I eventually grew to be so touched by that. It's almost like the nearest you can come to what theater can be. And if one can bear the anxiety of solo performance and the onslaught of self-sabotage and ego that kicks in when you realize that you're going to be on stage by yourself, and who do you think you are and all that stuff, it's really a profound opportunity to really come close to the mystery of talking to an audience and having them talk to you. All of that is happening on an uber level during solo performance. So I would say that's been a very tricky time to forget one's lines, but it's really, at least when I forget my lines when I'm by myself, I'm not letting anyone else down. Whereas when you're on stage and you forget your lines with a colleague, the profound disappointment you see in their eyes is really terrible. It's really terrible.
What did you learn about the mystery of playing on stage?
I guess literally in the air around you when you are performing a play, you perceive that there is an electricity around you that's filled with human need and human anguish and ennui and worry about life and about being oneself and wherever your body is in the continuum of your life. And you can sort of hear and feel around, literally in the air around the play and the words that are being spoken in the play to the audience. You can sort of hear and feel that there are other things being said and felt around the play that are bigger than words in some ways. And that seems to be the point of going to a play and being in a play, I think, and making a play, is to create an environment where those things can stop being inside of oneself alone and can start to literally lift into the space around us.
Of all your roles you've played, which is the closest to you as a person?
Well, the weird thing about being an actor is that they are all you. All your characters are you. You're forced to admit at some point in the process, oh God, that's me.
Even for the worst?
Absolutely. Absolutely. I did this role on Homeland that I don't even know if I mean, I don't even look like me on some level. Like my hair's slicked back in this tight bun, and I'm this kind of corporate Goomba or something. I've never really, and at the same time, I found it such a pleasure, such a relief to be that person because I was temporarily free from the things that Jessie wears in the world, like manners and a smile and kindness and accommodating. And I realized at some point, like, how delightful that was. And because it was actually an opportunity to be in touch with things that I don't really wear regularly.
What does the word interpretation mean to you?
I think the word interpretation to me means through the lens of through one's own lens, actually. So when I think about interpreting a piece of music or interpreting a piece of text or interpreting something that I'm observing in the world, it's almost like that thing I'm observing or interpreting comes through a frame, which is Jessie, and all the things that make up Jessie in that moment. So this is, of course, an education of craft, a study of craft, but also a life that's being fully lived as much as possible. All of my flaws, all of my petty hopes, the limits and abilities of my body at this time. So it's like interpretation implies frame or filter or lens. Interpretation isn't a reimagining of the original source itself, but it is a filtering. And that can be a really wonderful way to learn about the original source as well as about one's own filter.
How do you see interpretation as a writer?
This is a very interesting thing to think about because when I'm writing a play, I'm not writing without a sense of how I want it played. And the other way of saying that is I write hearing it. And so something that's been part of my maturation process as a writer is to realize that, first of all, I can trust how I heard the words and how I've chosen to communicate the words on the page, that I trust that, and that the more I can communicate that on the page and ask in a way that the interpreters, the actors, the director, the designers, the more I can make it clearly for them to perceive, the better. And at the same time, when I've been very, very lucky, I've been privileged to learn from the interpretation of other actors and other designers and directors. So part of my maturation process has been finding collaborators that can teach me about my own work.
What kind of thing do you learn from them?
From a really gifted interpreter and craftsman, you learn something about their filter, the lens that is their heart and their understanding of the world and of the character and the play. And that's the whole reason that we want to make a play, as opposed to writing a novel. If I wanted to only have it stay with me, I would write something where the thing I put on the page is it. But a piece of theater, it's really, the thing you put on the page is just a start point. And ultimately, it's not finished until it's out loud with an audience and in sort of this live event that's happening. And so you would like to think you had something to do with as the writer, but the truth is it's really a team sport, and something bigger than you emerges, and that's what's really touching and keeps you addicted to doing it again.
Did you experience to delve too deeply into a character?
No, I've never experienced that. I have learned, and it's a humble thing to learn, that the character will work on you. I'll notice sometimes that there's a backlog of other feelings that I'll feel before and after rehearsal that are kind of because something about the character is pinging with something in my life, and there's sort of something that's asking to come to the front in my mind that could have to do with the process and something that I need to bring to the role, but also something that the role is asking me to think about in my own life for my own life's sake. And the thing I can say that's most served me is having outlets for that. So that's, therapy, friends, journaling, exercise, meditation. But I've never felt felt that the character was a force that was going to carry me away. And also, I think it's possible to act from a place of unwell. And for some people, um, their own unwellness is the fuel and the momentum behind how and why they perform. And many, many brilliant actors have worked this way. So it's, there's a lot to be said. For me, the work has never come from unwellness. That's never particularly resonated with me, or helped me do my best work. And I believe, or for me, I found it worth investing in the idea that taking good care of the self only serves the work.
Do you have to mourn your character when you stop playing it?
Somehow, no. I don't know what that's about. I often mourn the people that I did it with. And it's interesting, I'll notice like my body will get used to, oh, we cry around 8:59 every night for several months. And then to not do that is strange. The body, the body needs that, the body ritual of doing the play is that's deep stuff, actually.
What does it mean exactly? What does it require from the body to be able to play on stage?
Yeah, the body has to literally, like a ritual every night of a play, has to perform the physical act of the play. The play is a physical act. That's a vocal thing, that's a physical thing, that's an emotional thing. And so the body learns for that period of time to enact the ritual. And so that is a deep thing. That affects every aspect of your life, actually, when you're an actor in a play. Succumbing and protecting your ability to deliver that ritual every night is your job, is your actual job. And so once that ritual ends, there's a process where the body is figuring out, oh, we're not doing the ritual. And what that means, I think that's a very interesting thing. I remember there was a play where I ate a piece of cake every night around this point. And the reason my character was eating a piece of cake and the way she ate the cake was from a kind of profound, so much hurt that it was rage. Hurt rage was eating that cake. And so I noticed that my body began to take on the symptoms of being depressed in the course of this play. And I thought that was really strange because I was quite happy personally at this time of doing this play. But my body was sort of carrying a depression, or my body didn't realize we were acting. My body doesn't know, no, we're not actually angry, so hurt that we're angry. Jesse's not actually feeling that, right? But my body doesn't know that. My body just knows we are eating this fucking cake.
Do you expect anything special from an interview like this?
I generally expect that I'll probably feel shy afterwards. It's also fascinating to try to talk about things that one doesn't normally talk about. When you're just making a life in the theater, you just get up every day and try to make theater. So it's rare to stop and really think about how you think about it.
I'm gonna leave the space, keep the microphone, and add whatever you want to the interview.
I think the longer that I'm an artist, the more distilled the question of why I'm an artist becomes. The more I ask myself, what am I really trying to do? But really, what am I really trying to do? And I go through phases where I really panic thinking about that, because at times I really don't know. I really don't know. What am I really trying to do? I don't know that I think much about legacy, or if my work will have impact on a larger population, or I don't think I think about that very much. I actually think I'm only able to take on the questions of my own life and my own collaborators and projects and interests at this time, and how to keep expanding and finding more projects and collaborators and interests, all in order to sort of best enjoy and take advantage of that I get to be Jessie and pursue an art form that allows the questions of my heart and the amusements of my imagination and as well as the pain of my failures. I've taken on an art form where I'm directly trafficking in those things and sifting through them and looking for, I don't know, it's almost like tapping around a house on walls and realizing, oh, there's a room back there. And so the art form I've gone into is constantly walking around my own house and tapping on the walls for where I could make more space and invite others in and see if we all want to spend a little time there for the price of a ticket. But once one gets past, when I think when you're first starting to be an artist, you're thinking about, you're just striving so much to have a chance to do it, to have a chance to make your art, to like make a place for yourself. And that's an incredibly fraught time. And then once you're able to have done that, once you've done that a little bit, you've gotten to produce your work, you've gotten to make a body of work. And so now you're in the middle of your body of work. Inevitably, one starts to consider, what kind of body of work are you trying to make? And this is a very interesting thing to consider because one doesn't want the work to become dull and tedious and stale. You sort of want to feel like the work keeps fresh and has a curiosity sort of leading it forward, hurtling it forward even into the unknown and into the next revelation of who you are and why you are doing what you're doing. I'm very curious to see how that will evolve and what I'll think of that 20 years from now when hopefully I'm still able to make work. It's very moving to think about that and to have an opportunity to speak about it. So thank you for asking me to do this, Philippe.